I was financially supporting a broke alpha. The alpha was obedient and well-behaved, even said he wanted something long-term with me. Until I overheard him on the phone, betas are more fun. You can do whatever you want and they won't get pregnant. I kicked him. While I was looking for someone new, his older brother came up to me and said, "Pick me instead. I promise I'll satisfy you." Looking at a face even better looking than his brother's, I nodded. To prove how serious he was about satisfying me, he gave it everything he had in bed. In a hoarse voice, he asked, "Wanna get pregnant?" Eyes red, I shook my head. I'm a beta. I can't get pregnant. He sounded completely sure of himself. "If I say you can, then you can." Later, his brother asked me with red eyes, "Are you using my brother as a replacement for me?" 1. After hearing what Mason said, my expression didn't change. He had a cigarette between his lips, one hand resting on the railing, phone pressed to his ear. When I arrived at the club, one of the guys who worked with him told me Mason had stepped out for a smoke. I followed and overheard that conversation. Mason had no idea I was there. He kept bragging to whoever was on the other end of the line. Betas can't get pregnant. You can do whatever you want with them. We haven't even slept together yet. He's been playing the good boy for 2 whole weeks. It's killing me. Leaning against the wall, I finally understood. So Mason was just pretending to be good. He never planned to be serious with me. Mason was the alpha I had just started financially supporting 2 weeks ago. Obedient, thoughtful. He even said recently he wanted to be with me long-term. I told him I'd think about it. He just smiled at me and said, "Sure, take your time. I'll wait for your answer." And yet now, I'm hearing this kind of garbage from him. At first, I chose Mason simply because of his face. I'd watched him for about a week and noticed he spent most of his free time doing odd jobs. That led me to one conclusion. A broke but hard-working alpha. How perfect. So I offered him a deal. Mason just froze for a second, then smiled with squinting eyes. Sure. I didn't overthink it. That's how I ended up keeping Mason. Now I realize how clueless I was back then. I saw through none of it. Mason flicked his ash. When am I gonna dump him? Who knows, maybe when I get bored. He chatted a bit more. Then finally hung up. When he turned around and saw me, the smile froze on his lips. I smiled sweetly. Oops, I heard everything. 2. That's when Mason seemed to snap out of it. He quickly walked over to me, putting on that harmless, innocent face again. "Carter, it's not what you think." The arrogance from earlier was gone. I stared at him and softly repeated, "Betas are more fun. You can do whatever you want with them." Watching the blood drain from Mason's face, I added, "Playing nice really was suffocating, huh? Must have been rough for you." Mason said nothing. But every word I repeated had definitely come from his mouth. Seeing there was no point pretending, Mason leaned against the wall. "Yeah, I was pretending." Then he smirked. "But you're the one who came to me first, Carter, weren't you?" He wasn't wrong. I had made the first move. He casually looked down, lit another cigarette, smiling in a way that made me sick. What did I say that was wrong? Betas can't get pregnant. Rage boiled up inside me. I kicked him hard in the stomach. Mason wasn't expecting it. I followed up with a punch right to his face. Damn bastard. Sometimes you just have to beat the crap out of someone like this. Beat him until he couldn't even speak. I might be a beta, but that doesn't mean I'm weak. Even when Mason tried using his pheromones to overpower me, I didn't feel a thing. He lay there stunned, blinking, blood on his lip, still managing to sneer, "Damn, you really hit hard. Psycho." Even bleeding, he still wouldn't shut up. I looked down at him, smiled coldly. Of course. Beating scum like you requires a certain kind of effort. And just so you know, I never go easy on scum. Mason pushed himself off the ground, stepped forward and hugged me tightly. Murmured, "Don't be mad anymore, okay? You've already hit me." I shoved him off. And laughed. "Seems like you misunderstood. Of course I'm dumping you." Then I raised my hand and slapped him, hard. That slap was for his disrespect towards betas. Afterwards, I calmly took out a handkerchief from my pocket and wiped my fingers. Get lost. As far away as possible. 3. Mason thought I was bluffing. Because I had seemed really into him. So he kept calling, texting. Acting like some lovesick puppy. But he was dead wrong. I never go back to an ex. Especially not someone like Mason. So fake. Right after that day, I blocked his number. Didn't expect him to keep messaging me using different ones. Really underestimated his shamelessness. I just wanted to support an alpha for once, and it all fell apart. I grabbed a cigarette and stepped out onto the balcony. Staring into the night sky, my mind cleared up. If this one doesn't work out, I'll just find another. There's no shortage of alphas in the world. I snuffed out the cigarette. Went downstairs and drove to the nearest club. The first floor had all the usual distractions, nothing exciting. Looking down from the 4th floor. Still boring. Mason was trash, but at least he came with a decent face. That's what drew me to him in the first place. Back then, he was an alpha. Strong and intense, that's what made it fun. I turned to head back to my private room. Didn't expect to bump into someone. I covered my nose. Sorry about that. It's fine. I looked up, and was stunned by how good-looking the guy was. Wait a second. He looked familiar. As I stared at him, my brain scrambled to make the connection. Then it hit me. I'd seen him before. Back when I went to Mason's school. Mason called him his brother. 4. Noticing me staring, the man frowned slightly. Did that bump hurt? He didn't look anything like Mason. His features were far more striking, tall nose bridge, and a naturally noble, refined air. Even better looking than Mason. Even more captivating. His voice pulled me back from my thoughts. Meeting his gaze, I shook my head. No. He didn't move, just glanced down at the floor below, jaw clenched. While I was still wondering, he looked back at me and said, "Hi Carter, I'm Forrest. I'm an alpha." Yeah, I could tell. Locked in those deep-set eyes of Forrest's, my brain short-circuited for a second. How did he know my name? Before I could figure it out, Forrest asked in a low voice, "Are you here scouting for a new one?" I looked at him warily. He knows that too. Then this definitely wasn't just a coincidence. I was sure I'd only seen Forrest once and never interacted with him. Oh. Except for Mason. Right. I'd beaten Mason up and dumped him. I gave Forrest a small smirk and met his eyes. With a hint of provocation, "So what if I am? You here to stand up for your brother?" Forrest paused for a second. Then let out a light laugh. No. And then, his next words hit me like a bomb. Totally stunned. "I came to ask if I could be the new one you're looking for." 5. I stared at Forrest, completely caught off guard. He didn't seem like he was joking. A few people passed by now and then, glancing at us before walking off laughing and chatting. I kept my eyes on Forrest, trying to find any trace of humor in his expression. Unfortunately, there wasn't any. "Mr. Pei, that wasn't a very funny joke," I said. "Besides, I'm a beta. You should be looking for an omega. If he's Mason's brother, how good could he really be? I've always believed in judging the whole tree by one rotten branch." Forrest lightly rubbed his fingers together. "Mason's an alpha too, and you went for him." I crossed my arms. Smirking, "Well, I don't want you." Forrest didn't beat around the bush. Relax, I'm not like Mason. As he spoke, he stepped forward just a little, leaning in close. Voice low and tempting, wanna give it a try? Forrest had this intense, almost predatory energy, like he wanted to devour me whole. His voice was dangerously persuasive, like a devil whispering in my ear. Keep me. I promise I'll satisfy you. He even hyped himself up. His face was so close to mine, and before I knew it, I'd nodded. I reached up and grabbed his collar. Used the momentum to kiss him. Fine. But if you're messing with me, then you and your brother can both forget about walking away. I smiled sweetly. Hope you really live up to your promise. 6. We tumbled into a hotel bed, with Forrest on top of me. Our clothes were a mess, both of us panting. I'd lost count of how many times we'd kissed. My lips were sore and burning. Forrest leaned down to my ear, voice hoarse, "Shall I start servicing you now?" Before I could say a word, he got off of me. The next second, my eyes flew wide open. Then I bit down hard on my lip. Forrest leaned in, trying to kiss me again, but I grabbed his hair. Disgusting. Forrest chuckled. Disgusted with yourself? He got up to rinse his mouth. When he came back, he couldn't wait to sink his teeth into me again. Like he'd never kissed anyone in his past life. Needless to say, I could already tell how swollen my lips must be. Forrest brushed his thumb hard across my red, puffy lips, glanced down and muttered. Really red. I was getting a little annoyed. So I cut to the point, "Are you not able to perform or something?" Forrest's eyes darkened. He slipped a hand under my shirt, and the heat of it made my whole body twitch. Later, Forrest fully proved just how functional he was. Even grabbed me and made me admit it out loud. In a daze, he bit down on the back of my neck by instinct. I struggled. Don't bite. I'm a beta, I don't have any pheromones. He stopped biting. Started licking instead. 7. Mason had come looking for me several times. I wouldn't open the door, so he just sat outside waiting. He thought since I had made the first move, I'd forgive him too. But Mason was wrong. If I could choose him, I could also kick him to the curb and move on. After enough visits, I got annoyed. I just called security and told them to get that nuisance Mason out of there. Then Mason got smarter. Instead of showing up at my place, he started stalking me at the places I usually went to. One time, Mason blocked my path. "Carter, you really don't want me anymore?" Honestly, Mason's face was top tier. But too bad, for now, Forrest's face was more my type. To be precise, everything about Forrest was more appealing. Mason stepped closer. He was wearing a light cologne. I couldn't smell any pheromones. Just perfume. TSK. So cheap. I smirked. Nope. I've got someone new now. Don't have the time or energy for you anymore. Mason, if you keep chasing me, it's just plain rude. Mason froze. Frowned and asked, "Someone new?" 8. I nodded. Mason stared at me for a while, then suddenly laughed. "Carter, you're such a face chaser. Besides me, who else could possibly catch your eye?" So Mason did know that his only real asset was his face. I smiled. Confidence is great, but he's 1,000 times better looking than you. Just thinking about Forrest, sweaty, holding me close. I swallowed without meaning to. Mason smirked. "Carter, you're lying, aren't you?" I couldn't be bothered to respond. Just as I was about to leave, Mason's expression changed. He looked like he was in pain. He instinctively clutched at his nape. Even as a beta, I knew some basic biology. "You in heat already?" 9. Mason nodded. He hadn't expected his heat to hit him out of nowhere. "Oh," I sighed. "Well, good luck with that." Mason tried to reach out to me, but out of nowhere, someone rushed up and grabbed his arm. "Mason!" You're in heat already. Come on, I'll take you back. I turned to look at the newcomer. A pale, delicate-looking boy, face full of worry for Mason. Definitely an Omega. Mason pulled away, his tone turning a little cold. I told you to stay home. Were you following me? The Omega bit his lip. I was just worried about you. I figured your heat would kick in around this time, and I couldn't relax, so I came to find you. Wow. Putting on the whole deeply devoted act, huh? Mason opened his mouth like he wanted to say something. But when he realized I was still there, he shut it again. I smiled. No worries. You two carry on. 10. The Omega looked at me, eyes a little red. Over the years, I've seen plenty of Omegas, but this kind of fragile one was rare. They'd get teary-eyed after just a few words. Too bad they liked someone like Mason. When I left, Mason tried to follow me, but the Omega blocked him, so he had to give up. I didn't have any energy left to mess around. I just turned around and went home. Not forgetting to call Forrest and ask him to come over. By the time I got home, Forrest was already there. He was sitting on the sofa. I hurried over and straddled him, wrapping my arms around his neck and kissed him. The sound of water splashing was pretty loud in the quiet room. Kinda embarrassing. I panted and squinted, staring at Forrest. Guess who I ran into? Forrest's hand slid up my shirt, tracing my back, voice tense, Mason? I let out a soft chuckle. Forrest's hand got bolder, already on my chest. I lifted my hand and pressed it down. Right on a certain spot. Honestly, it felt pretty good. Good enough to send tingles all over my scalp. Forrest didn't move, just held back his restless desire. I smiled, squinting at him and asked, "What does your pheromone smell like?" Inside my shirt, Forrest suddenly pinched. My voice changed instantly. Forrest laughed. Line 11. That night, Forrest and I rolled all over the room. On the bed, by the floor-to-ceiling window, in the bathroom, everywhere. He wasn't bragging, he was really that good. Lately, Forrest practically lived at my place. Stayed over almost every night. He had endless energy. While I felt like someone had sucked all the life out of me. Alphas are seriously terrifying. Forrest was no ordinary alpha. His stamina was insane. But no matter how much I planned, I didn't expect Mason to show up suddenly. "Carter, I came to see you." Before he finished, his smile froze. I leaned against the wall, expression calm. Mason's face darkened. "Carter, you smell like another alpha." Could I not? These past few days, I'd been tangled up with Forrest. Forrest marked me like a dog marking territory, biting my neck every chance he got. Beta glands are shriveled, but Forrest still bit down and injected pheromones. I couldn't smell it, but my glands felt so uncomfortable. So swollen. See? Betas can carry alpha scent too. "Carter, you're drenched in mine." I lifted my eyelids and glanced at him. "Didn't I say I'm with another alpha? You really think you're some prize, huh?" Right then, Forrest's voice came from inside. "What do you want for lunch?" Forrest was walking toward the door. The brothers locked eyes, and Mason's face completely changed. Dark and disbelieving. Forrest raised an eyebrow. "When did you get here?" Mason stared hard at Forrest. The question was Mason's. I answered for him, "Just now." Mason forced a smile. "Bro, what are you doing here?" Forrest looked at me. Said nothing. I smiled lightly. "Of course he lives here now. Forgot to tell you, Forrest is my new alpha." 12. Mason's smile looked ugly. "Carter, you're joking, right?" He looked at Forrest. "My bro wouldn't." I glared at him and smirked to cut him off. "Haven't you already smelled what's on me? Can't you tell it's your brother's pheromone?" Mason's heat phase was over. His mind was blank. My words made his face turn purple with frustration. He couldn't say a single word. As he left, I pulled back my gaze and looked to Forrest. This isn't good, Mr. Pei. Aren't you going to explain to your brother? Forrest raised an eyebrow. What's there to explain? He leaned in close. Isn't what you said the truth? I looked at Forrest for a long moment, then dropped my eyes and looked away. You're pretty straightforward. 13. Mason didn't come looking for me anymore, which gave me some peace. Forrest was going on a business trip for a week. Before he left, he came over to roll in the sheets one last time, determined to wear me out. I lay at home for 2 days, then went out looking for some fun. The private rooms at the club were full of my usual wild friends. No one had a proper job, just spent their days partying and sponsoring Omegas. Everyone brought their own Omegas, except me, which looked kinda pathetic. Across the room, Weston was holding an Omega on each arm, playing around, and between jokes still glanced over at me like a teacher. Carter, seriously, why don't you get yourself an Omega to hang with? Or even an Alpha? When Weston said that, others couldn't help but chime in. No way, I remember last time he found an Alpha. Wow, he really put effort in, even went to school to find him. Carter, why don't you bring him out to play? They meant Mason. But Mason had long been kicked to the curb by me. My head hurt. Forrest's face kept flashing in my mind. Had Forrest seen me before? Actually, I'd thought about it a lot and even asked Forrest directly. He only said, I've seen you before. The rest he swallowed back. Hey, Carter. I snapped back to attention and looked at them, frowning slightly. Leaning back lazily. Just dumped him. I pulled out a cigarette and lit it, blowing a smoke ring. Got someone else. You get bored that fast? Who now? His brother. The room went quiet for a moment, then erupted into wild screaming. No way, you're that twisted. Dumped the younger brother, found the older one, only you, Carter. Listening to their noisy chatter, my ears felt like they'd explode. I took a drag and left the room. Outside, I'd barely taken 2 puffs leaning on the railing when someone called me. Turning around, I saw the Omega who was with Mason last time, just as I remembered. A fragile little white rabbit. You need something? I asked, cigarette in mouth. The Omega spoke softly. Can you stay away from Mason? Looking at him, I wondered if I'd heard wrong. The Omega kept speaking, voice low. Alpha and Omega belong together. And Mason and I are already engaged. Damn it. What a scumbag. I squinted at him and scoffed. You got it wrong. Don't worry, I'm not interested in Mason. 14. The Omega hesitated, his gaze flickering on me. In the end, he just said, okay. I smirked slightly, studying the hint of sadness in his eyes. Honestly, if I were an alpha, I'd probably like this type too. Too bad I'm a beta. And I prefer good-looking, strong alphas. That's more exciting for me. I clicked my tongue, holding a cigarette between my fingers. How can you have such bad taste? The Omega lowered his eyes and said nothing. After he left, I wanted to kill the old me. That bastard actually had a marriage contract. The first thing Forrest did when he got back was hold me and nibble all over me. Everywhere, no spot left untouched. I gasped for breath and covered Forrest's mouth with my hand. He obediently stopped moving. But those deep eyes never blinked, fixed on me. Mason's engaged? I asked hoarsely. Forrest opened his mouth, and suddenly his palm felt wet. Forrest actually licked my hand? That's twisted. The atmosphere thickened with tension. Forrest's Adam's apple bobbed uncontrollably, his body pressed tightly against me. He whispered, yeah. I squinted, gripping his mouth tighter. He is. What about you? If Forrest dared to nod, I would kill him today. Though I keep a kept man, I'm a moral sugar daddy. Never a homewrecker. After failing with Mason, I was going to get it back from Forrest. Forrest's eyes burned as he took my hand away, kissing my wrist. He looked up, desire swirling in his eyes like he wanted to swallow me whole. "No," Forrest whispered. Then he kissed me. Maybe we hadn't seen each other for a week. Forrest came again and again. Until my legs shook, eyes red, begging him, "Enough, go away." Forrest didn't leave. He lifted my sweat-damp hair, brushing it back. Softly said, "Tell me, if we do this more times, will you get pregnant?" I grabbed his arm but slid down weakly. Hearing that, I thought Forrest was crazy. "I'm a beta. I can't get pregnant." Forrest murmured, "How will you know if you don't try?" 15. Forrest had zero awareness of being a kept man. I told him to stop, but he ignored me. It made me seriously suspect Forrest had never been with anyone before this life. After transferring him 10,000 yuan, I sent him away. Told him not to show his face around me this week. So when Mason suddenly showed up at night, I was caught off guard. He was clearly drunk, reeking of alcohol, shouting outside for me to open the door, saying he'd explain everything properly. I watched Mason lose it on the security monitor with a blank expression. Still, I opened the door. No other reason, I just wanted to see what kind of nonsense Mason would pull. I wasn't scared he'd do anything to me. First, I could beat him. Second, even if he tried to suppress me with pheromones, it wouldn't work, I couldn't smell them. Seeing me open the door, Mason froze. People like him are the best at pretending. "Carter." Mason spoke, the smell of alcohol hitting me like a wall. I covered my mouth and nose, so gross. "Stay away from me." Mason's face actually looked pretty bad. But he still took a step back. "Carter, I have something to tell you." I frowned. Mason looked at me, smiling bitterly. I realized Mason and Forrest did look a bit alike, especially around their eyes and eyebrows. Mason spoke softly, "Carter, do you treat my brother like a replacement for me?" 16. I wondered if my ears were malfunctioning. How else could I have heard Mason say something so shameless? I frowned and laughed. "You? Seriously?" I glanced up and down Mason. "Compared to Forrest, you're way below par." Mason's face darkened. But he took a deep breath. Forced out, "Then why did you choose him? My brother and I look so alike." I raised a hand to stop him. "You're not really that alike, no need to flatter yourself." Mason went silent. His eyes suddenly reddened. Something inside them seemed to shatter. He whispered, "But I met you first." "So what?" When I first liked Mason, I had intentionally shown up where he worked, witnessing customers giving him a hard time. I just watched quietly as he apologized and bowed. Until the customer told him to get lost. Mason was still smiling. When I finally offered Mason a monthly allowance to stop him working those jobs, I'd already decided how much to give him. I had nothing except money. Turns out Mason's obedience was all fake. I'd seen him flip his face before. Now hearing him, I only felt disgust. "Oh, so what? Am I supposed to mourn you or something?" 17. Mason's smile was ugly. "Carter, you don't need to be so harsh." I smiled too. "If you can, go kill me." Mason stared silently at me. In the end, he couldn't hold back. But I was just joking. I nodded. "So what? Jokes don't change the fact you're a terrible person." Mason stared at me like he wanted to drill a hole through me. He wasn't regretful. Just plain self-destructive. Otherwise, why come looking for me tonight? Suddenly, Mason laughed. "Carter, how much money did you give my brother?" I had no idea what he was on about. "None of your damn business. Does he even need your money?" I looked past Mason. The Omega who'd been following him lit a cigarette, expressionless, staring over here. Next second, He dropped the cigarette on the ground. Stomped on it repeatedly. Called Mason's name. Mason was stunned, turning to look. Then slapped him across the face. I was stunned. No way, right? Meeting the Omega's gaze, I cursed inside. Was he going to hit me too? The Omega just withdrew his gaze, not looking at Mason once. Softly said, "You're right. He really is a terrible person." The Omega left. Mason chased after him recklessly. What a jerk. 18. I hadn't seen Mason for a while. But I ran into Forrest pretty much every other day. Mason's question, "Does he even need your money?" kept lingering in my head. I'm not stupid. The watch Forrest wore was worth 7 figures, and his clothes were all custom-made. At first, I thought maybe it was for work and just high-quality replicas, so I didn't pay much attention. But when I looked closely, I couldn't help but curse inside. It was the real deal. Forrest didn't bring it up, and I didn't ask. If he was humble enough to be a kept man for a beta like me, I wasn't about to be ungrateful. Still, I thought back to how Mason pretended to be poor at all costs, willing to suffer humiliation. Mason played both obedient and poor. Forrest played poor. Those brothers really knew how to pretend. Until one day, I ran into Forrest at the club. He was discussing a deal with a client. I was outside smoking. I heard the client call him Mr. Pay over and over. Forrest's face wore the fake smile of a businessman. When he saw me, the smile faded instantly. I grinned, raised my hand, and silently mouthed, "What a coincidence." 19. Forrest came just as I stepped out of the bathroom after showering. He sat on the couch, half-lidded eyes, looking up with a dark expression when he heard me. I hadn't expected him so soon. I just entered the bathroom and he was already here. I tossed the towel I was drying my hair with. I looked at Forrest. Anything to explain? His Adam's apple moved. No. I let out a cold laugh. Forrest, eldest son of the Pay family. His mother died when he was 6, father remarried, and Mason was his stepmother's son. After graduating from a top university, he joined the family business. In 2 years, he took full control of the company. Pretty impressive status. I walked up to him, standing over him, looking down. Didn't expect the Pay family's eldest son to be my lover, I mocked, my honor. Forrest looked up. But said nothing. We locked eyes in silence for a long moment. Then he said, "My fault." I noticed Forrest's expression was off. He was suppressing something strong. His possessiveness flared wildly in his eyes. There was only one explanation. That sensitive period. An alpha's sensitive period is scary, especially their possessiveness towards their partner, much stronger and more restless than usual, like a wolf defending its territory. So when Mason's sensitive period hit last time, I ran away. My instincts screamed danger. I took a step back. Forrest grabbed my hand and pulled hard. I wasn't ready and fell right onto his lap. He whispered, "Sorry, I lost control." 20. I used to say Forrest was twisted. Well, in his sensitive period, he was twisted to the extreme. I was oddly scared. Forrest seemed to notice my mood. He let go, picked me up from his lap with one hand, and set me aside. Covered the back of his neck and stood to leave. I called after him, "Where are you going?" He turned. "Home," he whispered. I got up slowly, my robe loosening from the movement. I didn't care and walked up to Forrest. "Home." Forrest stared silently. Even the air seemed to roar. I grabbed his tie and pulled it down. The distance closed instantly. Forrest's breath was heavy and warm. I moved his hand away from the back of his neck and pressed firmly on a spot. Forrest groaned softly. His expression changed immediately. I raised an eyebrow. "That works?" Forrest said nothing, just wrapped his arms around my neck and kissed me fiercely. Our lips tangled wildly, as if we couldn't break apart. Carter, Forrest murmured my name. I kept my head clear. Asked, does an alpha's sensitive period mean they look for an omega? Forrest whispered, no. I nodded and asked. Forrest, have you ever looked for an omega? No. And in the future? Won't. Suddenly I released him and took a big step back. Smiling at him, I said, then you can leave. Forrest fell into an odd silence. Leave? Everyone says alphas are very dominant during their sensitive period, in every way. I'm not an omega. I can't calm him down. If I said that, I might really die in bed. So under Forrest's gaze, I nodded again. Yes, please go. 21. Forrest smirked, looks like I can't leave. I could tell he was struggling to hold back during this sensitive period. Suddenly, Forrest stepped forward and pulled me into his arms. His grip was tight. But he didn't do anything. Carter, I'm going to leave now. He let go and started to walk away. I suddenly grabbed him. He was slightly stunned. I said, I want to see how scary the sensitive period really is. Will you stay and show me? Are you inviting me? We stared at each other for a moment. I let go of him. Then leave. Forrest didn't leave. Instead, he grabbed my chin and kissed me hard. There was a hint of obsession in his eyes. Not leaving. That night, I really saw how terrifying an alpha's sensitive period could be. Forrest was tireless, pulling me over and over again. Want to get pregnant, baby? Forrest whispered in my ear. I was already done for. My mind was blank. Forrest's beastly nature was in full display. No matter how much I begged, it was useless. I shook my red eyes. I'm a beta. I can't get pregnant. Damn it. I really regretted letting Forrest stay. Not too much, not too little, he was something else. Forrest lowered his eyes and softly said, it's possible. I suddenly opened my eyes wide and pushed him hard. Really, really not possible. Betas don't have pheromones, and even their reproductive organs are tiny. It's impossible. Forrest was confident, if I say it's possible, then it is. 22. An alpha's sensitive period usually lasts several days. During those days, Forrest tortured me until I was a mess. When Forrest's sensitive period ended, he looked at me, completely worn out and on the verge of collapse, with what looked like pain in his eyes. Pain? Yeah, right. Maybe I'm just imagining things. Forrest lifted the blanket, frowning. Let me see. I raised my hand. Smack. I slapped his face. He turned away from the blow, still wearing my pajamas. I gave him a cold look. Forrest didn't even care about the slap. If that's not enough, I can take one on this side, too. I already said no, damn it. Forrest, have you forgotten who's keeping who here? Forrest lowered his eyes to my swollen cheek. Not forgotten. I wanted to slap him again, but worried he might lick my hand. Get lost, I said coldly. The farther you go, the better. I want to end our contract. The kept man contract. I'm done keeping Forrest. He stared at me for a long time. Fine. Get lost. I'll help you put on some medicine first, then I'll leave, okay? Even that little favor he wanted to keep. 23. I completely kicked Forrest out. But he was like a stubborn patch, always around, always managing to appear out of nowhere. He would pop up and casually apologize with some smooth words. I ignored him. He just kept talking. This went on for over a month. One day, when a new alpha tried to feed me a drink, Forrest kicked open the private room door. His cold gaze landed on that alpha. Alphas' pheromones repel each other, and that alpha's face instantly turned pale. If the manager hadn't come and kicked him out, I'm pretty sure Forrest could have held him down with pheromones all night. Soon, it was just Forrest and me left in the room. I lounged lazily on the sofa, glancing at him casually. Mr. Pei gracing us with his presence. What's the occasion? Forrest stood firmly in front of me, looking down on me a bit. He tilted his head slightly and glanced at the drinks on the table. Did you let him feed you a drink just now? He asked softly. I smiled. Is there a problem? Then I pretended to realize something. Oh? Or maybe Mr. Pei wants to feed me too. Fine. Forrest cut me off. I'll do it. 24. I narrowed my eyes and immediately saw what Forrest was thinking. Sorry, playing the pervert is one thing. Does Mr. Pei know the rules of feeding drinks? You have to kneel. Forrest looked at me and chuckled lightly. That's not impossible. Before I could react, Forrest grabbed a nearby open bottle and gulped it down, then knelt right in front of me, pulling my clothes down a bit. Lip to lip. He drank all the alcohol. I snapped out of it and shoved him away hard. Who the hell told you to feed me drinks or kneel? Forrest licked his lips. Smiling quietly, it's okay. You've knelt quite a few times. Me once in a while won't hurt. My ears felt uncomfortably hot. The first thing the anti-prostitution police would do is raid Forrest, that bastard. I sneered, you sure know how to climb the ladder. Forrest said nothing. Know what get lost means? It means don't show up in front of me. Forrest thought for a moment. That's not possible. My face lost all humor. I stared at Forrest, grinding my teeth. You lied to me. Now you're clinging to me. Playing the deep feeling act? No. I'm chasing you. Chasing you. The words got stuck in my throat. I stared at Forrest for a while longer. Then I laughed. Forrest, we have a kept man relationship, okay? I know. That's why I'm chasing you. My heart instantly went haywire. 25. Forrest said he was chasing me, and he really was. Even when I ignored him, he waited like a maniac under my apartment building. He only left after I shouted at him. I lay back down in bed. My head was a mess. I should have checked him out before keeping Forrest. I only wanted to keep an alpha who needed money but ended up with a Buddha. I stared at the ceiling with my eyes wide open. I admit, Forrest's skills were pretty good. But his behavior made me want to kill him. Forrest often followed me around, and even my rowdy friends knew about it. Damn, how did you get involved with him? That guy's trying to silence you. Not silence me. Chase me. I said, the one I keep is him. What? After they knew Forrest was chasing me, my friends scattered. They said if anything happened, don't contact them. When I got home and found Forrest holding flowers at my door, I finally lost it. I stormed up, sarcastic as hell, Mr. Pei, what exactly do you want? Forrest answered seriously. I want to chase you. I froze. Didn't dare open my eyes. Are you an idiot? Yeah. I took a deep breath and leaned against the wall. I couldn't help but pull out a cigarette, lighting it up. We just have a simple kept man arrangement. You don't have to be so serious. No, Forrest said. I don't see this as a kept man deal. I paused my lighter motion. He added, I see it as dating. With you. 26. That really stunned me. My ears burned like crazy. I cursed him, who's dating you? Stop flattering yourself. Forrest went silent. Looking at him, I turned my eyes away. So annoying. I never even lit the cigarette. My heart never calmed down. We stood silently outside. He handed me the flowers. I'll go now. Without looking back, Forrest got into his car. I took the flowers upstairs and tossed them into a random vase. That night, I couldn't sleep and smoked half a pack on the balcony. 27. At the club, I ran into that Omega who used to be with Forrest. I didn't expect him to call me over. Carter, right? He smiled with eyes curved like crescents. I didn't know why he called me but nodded. He asked, "Got a smoke?" I handed him one. He lit it skillfully and took a few drags. Then said, "I broke off my engagement with Mason. I was the one who ended it." I nodded. Good. The Omega smiled. I was blind before, practically crawling around him. Now I get it. He's just trash. I couldn't help but laugh and agreed, yeah. He fell silent for a moment and then asked, "How's it going with Forrest?" "Looks like Forrest's chasing me is already known around." "Just a so-so." Right after, the Omega lifted his chin and nodded. "Forrest's here." I looked over. Forrest was standing not far away, quietly watching me. The Omega said, "Forrest's a good guy." "Oh, I'm Damon." After saying that, he stubbed out his cigarette and left. I quietly watched Forrest, silently rejecting Damon's words. "Just a so-so." Forrest walked over and stared at me. "Smoking?" I said nothing. "Not happy?" Then I cut him off. "Forrest. I'm not smoking. Want to try?" Forrest didn't expect my sudden change in attitude and was momentarily caught off guard. I was already pulling him close by his clothes. Forrest took control. Kissed me. When he pulled away, his voice was hoarse. "What does this mean?" I didn't answer. Instead, I said, "You're still a bad kisser." 28. Our eyes met. I asked him, "Wanna come home with me?" Forrest's voice was even hoarser. "I will." That night was intense. Afterwards, I leaned on the bed and asked Forrest, "When did you first notice me?" "Second year of college," Forrest said like he was recalling something. "You looked cool fighting." I remembered. Back then, when I was playing basketball, the guys on the other team were talking trash. At first, I didn't care. But during halftime, a pretty Omega came over to bring water, and those guys acted like idiots. I couldn't hold back. I punched the one who talked the most shit. Then a fight broke out. Turns out Forrest saw it. I frowned, thinking for a long time. "You were there too?" "Just glanced over." "That's it?" "No." The real conversation between Carter and Forrest happened on a rainy day. Forrest had a fight with his dad and was in a bad mood. He was walking slowly back to the dorm in the rain when Carter suddenly appeared and held an umbrella over him. The rain falling on him instantly stopped. He heard Carter say, "Hey, aren't you going to use an umbrella in this heavy rain?" It was dark, but he clearly saw Carter's face. After a long pause, he said, "I forgot." Carter smiled, "It's okay, I'll walk you back." Later he found out Carter had just come back from outside, and their dorms were far apart. After graduation, he quietly kept watching Carter. He went crazy jealous when he heard Carter was keeping Mason. But luckily, now Carter was his. Seeing Forrest zoning out, I waved my hand in front of his face. "What are you thinking about?" Forrest snapped back. Turned his head, "Nothing." I smirked, "We already slept together, you can leave now." 29. Leave? Forrest lowered his eyes. "Go where?" "Back to your place." After I said that, Forrest actually got out of bed and put on his clothes. When he reached the door, I mischievously called after him. "Really going?" Forrest came back again. Standing by my bed. His gaze darkened as it landed on me. "Not going." I put the cigarette in my hand between Forrest's lips. "Change your role?" Forrest mumbled, "What?" "Bed buddy." Forrest's face instantly turned green. "Not that I don't." I interrupted, "Don't like it?" "How about boyfriend then?" Forrest looked at me for a long time. "What?" "If not, then get lost." Forrest cupped my face. Smiled. "Okay. I'm a beta, can't help you during your sensitive period, Can. Forrest cut me off, you can. And I don't care if you're alpha, omega, or beta. None of that matters to me. I like you because you're Carter. Not because of gender. Looking at Forrest seriously, I smiled, alright. Got it, boyfriend. 30. I've been with Forrest for a year now. Every time in bed, he's so eager he practically wants to send me to heaven. I curse him. Are you trying to get me pregnant or what? No? But soon enough, I actually threw up. At the doctor's, they told me I was pregnant. I was so mad I wanted to kill Forrest. Damn. Alphas really are crazy. Forrest looked at my furious face cautiously and asked, do you want it? Hell yeah, I want it. Then, shall we get married? After getting married, Forrest got even sillier. I touched my slightly swollen belly. Sighed. I'm really pregnant. Well, whatever. It's not so bad.